We're joined now by former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Good to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jim.
Before I get to the Prime Minister's comments, I want to ask your reaction to the latest exchange of fire between the U.S. and Iran. This, as you know, is not the first time. Do you believe there is still a ceasefire? And do you believe there's still a credible path to negotiations?
I believe that Iran will continue to play delay tactics, cat and mouse games with the United States in order to improve their leverage and ultimately keep and retain their nuclear program. These folks, the Ayatollahs, they only understand leverage and force. And I'm not necessarily talking only about military force, also economic sanctions and other sorts of pressure. But they are just world experts in playing these games, and that's what's happening right now.
So let me ask you this, given that this has been stretching out, these games, as you describe them, have stretching out for a number of weeks, are they playing the U.S. to some degree? I mean, is in your view, is the U.S. wise enough to your description of how Iran carries out negotiations?
Well, I think President Trump wants to ensure that Iran cannot acquire a nuclear weapon, that Iran's nuclear program is dismantled and without enrichment, etc. And he's pursuing the negotiation, which is fine as long as you hold the big stick.
Yeah.
It was, I believe, Teddy Roosevelt who said they carry a big stick and speak softly. So the stick has to remain. The moment you let down that stick, they just will pursue the nuclear program and gradually erode all the elements that already have been agreed on, even though very, very little has been.
If Iran retains its nuclear program, would the war have been lost?
Look, the main goal of this war is to dismantle Iran's nuclear program. So obviously the objective has to be met. We have to be patient about this. The Iranian regime has patience, and we have to show strategic patience and pressure them, not let go of the financial sanctions, which are very, very damaging when they're up there. I understand they're just biding for time. They're just waiting for something to happen. So we have to see this through, because a nuclear Iran is not only a nightmare for Israel, but for the entire Middle East and for the world, for that matter.
Let me talk now, if I can, about the relationship between the U.S. and Iran. You heard Prime Minister Netanyahu there say that there are disagreements between the U.S. and Israel, but allies can have disagreements. And he says that he and President Trump remain aligned. Do you buy that?
Well, look, Israel and America are two different nations. We're obviously the smaller partner, the junior partner here. But in the Middle East, this is where we live. And we are an anchor of security and freedom in the Middle East, and a very important one, because we're doing the fighting. We didn't ask America to fight in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Iran. We're doing the fighting, and we never will ask for American soldiers to defend us. We'll do the job. We do need America's back. Not always are things viewed identically. I'll give you one example. From our perspective, Iran is an existential threat to the small Jewish state, whereas for America, it's a strategic threat, but not an existential one. And therefore, we have to ensure that our interests are there. And I want to be very clear. While it's no secret that I'm running for prime minister in the hopes of replacing Netanyahu's government, the opposition and coalition in Israel all stand together, united in the critical goal of dismantling Iran from having any nuclear program. This is not about opposition or coalition or Netanyahu or not Netanyahu. This is about security for Israel, for the Middle East, and for the world.
As you know, part of Netanyahu's support inside Israel has been, at least in the past, based on his close relationship with Trump. That relationship is not quite as close based on some of the comments, both public and private. Do you believe that Netanyahu has damaged that relationship?
Well, I think after 30 years of serving Israel, doing some very good things and some lesser things for Israel, it's time for Netanyahu to move on. It's time for new leadership in Israel. It's time for a renaissance in Israel, Israel and its neighbors, and Israel in the relationship with the United States. We are not at our best moment, obviously, and I'm acutely aware of our position in the American public, which is at a very low point. But I do want to ensure that Americans understand that we deeply appreciate this friendship, and we are fighting for freedom in crazy circumstances. We don't want war. I hate war. I fought wars. I lost my best friend in war. My son is fighting. This is all very personal. We hate war, but what can we do if not defend ourselves from Hezbollah, Iran, Hamas that all want to destroy us? So it's not a symmetric situation. They want to destroy us. We're not looking to destroy Lebanon or any other country. Just we want peace.
Asked about declining support for Israel here in the U.S., Netanyahu blamed to a large degree social media. He said that people are being fed, in effect, propaganda or at least inaccurate information on platforms such as TikTok. In your view, is that it? Or have Netanyahu's policies and Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza and Lebanon contributed to that loss of support?
Well, I think there's a very broad view in the West today, generally, regardless of Israel, of the victims and the victimizers, the aggressors and the victims. And supposedly in this framework, Israel is the aggressor. It's all beautiful, except that it's wrong. It's simply wrong. We did not attack anyone on October 7th. We were attacked. We were attacked by Hezbollah. We were attacked by Iran. So this is all a response to these attacks. I can guarantee you that the day that our enemies decide to stop fighting Israel or lay down their arms, there will be peace, because we're not seeking any enlargement of Israel. We're not seeking anything. We just want to lead our lives. So in that sense, all Israelis understand, those who support Netanyahu, those who oppose Netanyahu, understand that we're in a war to defend Israel. My big criticism is that it's taking way, way too long. This should not have taken 3 years. We should have, if we have no choice but to go to war, it should be short, strong, and victorious.
As you know, and some of this criticism comes from inside Israel as well, that it's not questioning Israel's response to respond to the October 7th attacks. It's about the conduct of that response and the attention in particular to the deaths of civilians, and not just in Gaza, but in Lebanon. Do you believe any of that criticism is fair?
I think the basis for what has been happening over the past 3 years is what happened 25 years beforehand, which is Iran, through its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, built a whole new strategy, which is to turn cities, towns into terror bases. So imagine a town where every house has a rocket launcher in it, or hand grenades, or is part of the terror base. And the moment they turned their entire civilian infrastructure into a terror infrastructure, that forced Israel. We're not magicians. We need to do away with terror. It forces us to destroy those bases, those terror bases that are being hosted in homes, in schools, and hospitals. I think you'd agree with me that the moment a hospital is turned into a terror base, it no longer enjoys the term hospital.
Before we go, just one more question, if I can, given the elections are coming closer and closer in Israel. The latest polling suggests neither Netanyahu's coalition nor the opposition would have enough seats to form a government. And this is a pattern we've seen in so many elections where the margins are just so tight, right? What does that tell you about where the Israeli public stands right now? And do you see a figure who can unite? I mean, do you believe you could unite a broader coalition in Israel?
Yes, I absolutely believe I can unite and build a broader coalition. Already, as Prime Minister, I led the most diverse coalition in Israel's history with 8 different parties: religious, secular, right, left, Jewish parties, and there was an Arab party back then. So I know how to connect different types of people. And it was a beautiful government. It was bipartisan. You know, everyone knows my opinions. I'm a very hawkish right-wing person, but I'm also very liberal. And most importantly, I know how to unite Israel behind a common goal of fixing Israel. What I would do as prime minister after uniting the country, I would build a constitution for Israel, which we don't have. I would go out to the region with a big initiative of peace and normalization with the moderate Arab countries. And I think we could do amazing things, especially business-wise. And internally, I would work to heal Israel from inside because we've taken a big hit over the past 3 years. So I'm very optimistic. I think we're going to win. And I think we have good chances of fixing Israel and telling a whole new story to the world.
Naftali Bennett, we appreciate you joining. Let's talk as we get closer to Election Day.
You got it. And if I may wish a happy 250 year birthday to the American people. America has done immense good to the world, and we're proud to be such a close friend to your amazing nation.
Appreciate it. Just wish we could have done better on the soccer pitch last night. Naftali Bennett, thanks so much.
Well, nobody's perfect. You take care.
It happens.